Senator Rand Paul, Republican member of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate. Senator, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Thanks
for having me.
Let's begin with this issue of Russia. We have President-elect Trump out there this morning calling the CIA assessment that Russia was trying to help elect him ridiculous. He also says he doesn't believe the earlier findings of all 17 intelligence agencies that Russia was trying to get involved in our elections. You just heard Reince Priebus there as well. What do you make of all that?
You know, I think we need to get to the bottom of it, and I think there should be an investigation because in order to defend ourselves against other adversarial countries, we do have to protect our information. But one of the things that came out of the campaign, as I recall, was a high-ranking Clinton official, I believe, sent their password via email. We also need to learn how to protect our own information, and I think that's important as well. But the government does need to learn from this and see if we can do a better job. But I will tell you, though, that, you know, Donald Trump got 70% in eastern Kentucky, and I don't think it had anything to do with the Russians. He got 70% because in eastern Kentucky, we didn't like what President Obama or Hillary Clinton wanted to do to our coal jobs, but it didn't have anything to do with the Russians.
Again, they weren't making any conclusions about whether or not it affected the outcome of the election. They weren't drawing that conclusion at all. But what do you do, and you're a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, what do you do as you continue to investigate this? If the evidence continues to pile up that Russia was trying to influence our elections, how should the U.S. respond?
You know, I think it's a little premature to talk about response until we know exactly what happened, but we should know what happened, and we should know how to defend ourselves. Without question, this is an ongoing threat from a variety of sources around the world, and actually I think it works both ways. I'm not privy to it, but I think all of the various countries that have the ability are invading each other's computers all the time, but we do have to protect our data. It's very important.
How about this likely pick for Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson? Again, we heard Reince Priebus right there talk about his business experience. You've got your colleagues like Senators McCain and Graham saying that they want to ask him a lot of questions, these confirmation hearings. You're sitting on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Do you have any concerns?
You know, I'm going to reserve judgment on Tillerson, but I'll ask him the same question I've asked the others. Do you understand the historic lesson that the Iraq War was a failure, a strategic mistake? That's what Donald Trump says. I don't know about Tillerson, but I do know that John Bolton doesn't get it. He still believes in regime change. He's still a big cheerleader for the Iraq War. He's promoted a nuclear attack by Israel on Iran. He wants to do regime change in Iran. So I think John Bolton is so far out of it and has such a naive understanding of the world. If he were to be the assistant or the undersecretary for Tillerson, I'm an automatic no on Bolton. He should get nowhere close to the State Department if anybody with a sane worldview is in charge.
So automatic no on Bolton as Deputy Secretary of State. He is also the likely pick for that, but open mind on Tillerson. What about Mr. Tillerson's ties to Vladimir Putin?
I don't know all of that yet. And to me, the most important question is, are you an advocate for the Iraq War? Do you think that was a good idea? Do you think regime change? Because, see, these questions keep recurring. You know, Bolton was an advocate for regime change in Libya. So was Hillary Clinton, actually. And Donald Trump said it was a mistake. I agree it was a mistake to do regime change in Libya. We became more endangered, and actually worse people took over afterwards. I also think regime change in Syria is a bad idea, and that's an ongoing question. It's one of the things I liked about Donald Trump. One of the reasons I endorsed him is he thinks regime change is a mistake, but John Bolton thinks completely the opposite. They are diametric opposites. So I'll do anything to try to prevent John Bolton from getting any position because I think his worldview is naive. He believes we're going to spread democracy, we're going to topple governments everywhere, and they're going to elect Thomas Jefferson. That's not the way it works in the Middle East.
It's clear where you stand on that right now. On another subject, how about the budget? We heard President-elect Trump say this week that he wants $1 trillion infrastructure program, also repealing Obamacare, and according to the CBO, repealing Obamacare is going to add billions to the deficit. You've been a real hawk on government spending. Can you support a budget right out of the box that adds to the federal debt?
No. In fact, I won't support any budget, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat budget, that doesn't lead to balance. The current budget that the Republicans are looking at never balances. How can that be fiscally responsible? And how can we look at the public with a straight face and say, yes, we ran on balanced budgets, we're for the balanced budget amendment, and yet the budget we're going to introduce that we're going to repeal Obamacare with never balances? So I'm a no vote right now, and all it takes is a couple of us. If there are a few conservatives in the Senate wing of the Republican Party that will say no to a budget that never balances, we could have the power to say to the leadership, you know what, we need a better budget. I don't know if it will happen, but I know that I will be one that won't vote for a budget that never balances.
Do you have others ready to join you?
We'll see. I'm working on a few that are our close allies in the Senate, and we'll see what happens. But I don't think it's known yet. Also, they haven't put all the numbers into the budget, so we're going to have to see. But the budget they're contemplating is a budget that never balances, and I won't support that.
Finally, how about this question of conflicts of interest? We saw President-elect Trump's decision on Celebrity Apprentice earlier this week. He's going to make a major announcement later this week on how he's going to handle his overall businesses. If he keeps the businesses in the family. Do you have any concerns that foreign interests, foreign organizations might be trying to curry favor by doing deals with the Trump family?
You know, I think when people voted for Donald Trump, they realized he owned a lot of stuff with his name on it. I think the concern over conflict of interest seems to be higher in the media than the public. People saying, oh, he has to sell all of his stuff. How would you possibly sell 700 companies in a fire sale and hope to get what they were worth? It's just an unrealistic sort of standard they're trying to hold him to. So, yes, I think he has to do everything he can to set up a firewall between him and his businesses. But I think it's unrealistic for people to be saying, oh, he should just sell all of his business. It's not like stock. We've had presidents that have put their stock into account and they didn't know what their stock mix was, and I like that. And I think Donald Trump has agreed that he would do the same on his stock. He's either sold it or will do it. But it's a little different when you spend 30 years developing all these companies that we just ask him to sell them. So I don't think that's a fair request.
Senator Paul, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, George.